That's the point.
Card games, as well as these amazing patrons. Thank you for your support. Enjoy the video.
Stream is muted, Jeremy.
Hey there, rulers. Welcome back to, after a long week of Force of Will, to the Teacher's Lounge, your favorite ever live Force of Will podcast featuring myself, Jeremy Franklin, and as always, I've been joined by Ryan Miles.
I'm Ryan Miles.
Brandon Bremont.
Featuring 20 different darkness stones.
And Frank Klosser.
Hello.
And tonight is the Reign of Tears. Somebody have a darkness will to be able to
I have
cast.
darkness stones.
There we go.
Lots of them.
Come on, we need to
start
cast.
having votes on these titles instead of you just making these terrible goddamn puns. This is my contract for continuing on this podcast.
Here we go, Jeremy.
There you go. Perfect. Thank you. I need you to cast one of those.
Dude.
We need to give three -1/-1 counters to Ryan. So.
Oh, I already have them. Don't worry.
He's a Beelzebub.
Tonight we have officially had, since Vegas, we have had 5 GP-esque level events across the world, right?
Something like that.
It was at least 4. So there was Manchester, Singapore, Australia, and one other one. Berlin. The one that you were at.
I feel like I should know.
I think Berlin technically happened before Vegas because time zones.
Yeah, right. So before we get into that, though, I want a huge thanks to all of you guys who are tuning in. Thank you guys for so much support. I'm seeing all those wonderful spammed emotes in the chat, including our new one, Foul Thinking. We unlocked that one because of all the people who have been joining as members. So thank you guys so much for continuing to support us in that way. The more members we get, the more emojis we can do. So this was the one that was requested. And so now we have we can summon a 3-drop, a 2-drop, and a 1-drop every single time someone wants to do some thinking.
Oh my god. The more you guys sub, the more we get paid. So, it's really exactly. We totally get paid to do this. Us teachers.
You get paid in the fact that I lend you cards whenever I travel to events.
That is true.
Oh, is that what it is?
I plan on going to this North Carolina GP with exactly 0 cards of my own. I'm just going to message Jeremy at like midnight on Thursday, be like, this is what I am playing.
And I'll be like, okay, I'll build it, but you don't get to make any changes.
Jeremy owes me.
So tonight we want to talk about, after having seen all these events and done any amount of testing that we've done ourselves and kind of looking about what direction the meta it might take, step forward, step backward, step around, whatever, to kind of talk about what we think is the generalized tier list of what kind of is at the top of the pack and what is maybe lower but can still sneak in there. And then, of course, we're going to finish that up with, we're going to try to build a Lich List all together today. Without any of us arguing about it.
Brandon already has a Lich List completely done. He's like, as soon as we load in here, just boom, 40 cards. Already got the best Lich List imaginable.
This is more or less accurate, actually. If you think you're kidding.
No, that's not how this works.
That's not how this works, Brandon. So let's go ahead.
You guys can tarnish perfection all you want. If you want to paint mustaches on the Mona Lisa, I'm not going to stop you. But
so here's what we're going to do.
You're still going to paint the Mona Lisa in the first place.
I'd like to quickly just go around the room, around the circle, and talk about at least rulers that we think at worst are a sneaky rogue potential and at best are like known meta, like top tier. So like just list rulers and then we'll kind of go back through and see which one of those kind of look at. I'm going to take notes here about what we think kind of fits into, that.
So basically, playable things that we should put on a tier list in some capacity.
Exactly.
Okay.
Wait, like everything or only things that aren't obvious?
So like I'm talking if it would make it onto a tier list as something that you should potentially even look at for playing, let's put that as down as a ruler. So like we're not gonna put we're not gonna put Adam Sykart.
Right. This is Jeremy telling me that I have to mention Shayla, even though I don't want to. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, no,
okay, so I'm hearing Shayla. Okay, great.
Shayla was the very first ruler that I thought for being like ruler that people probably aren't thinking about as much as they should.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got Shayla. What else? What else we got?
So we can do the obvious ones here and say Brunhilde, Hanzo, Gil.
Yeah.
So we got Gil, Brunhilde, and Hanzo.
Shayla Kirik
has earned a spot on this list somewhere, even if we trash him later on.
Tigris
is worth remembering that Tigris exists.
Lucifer definitely exists.
Okay.
AU, I guess, definitely exists, even if it's not good.
But I don't think we have anything new to say about IU.
Arthur definitely is a deck
for sure. Are we saying just rulers, or can I say like the 3 breeds of Hanzo that I like?
We'll go into each specific ruler as we come back.
Sure.
Okay.
Kirik, Shayla,
time spinning?
Time spinning.
Yeah, we'll put time spinning on there.
Okay.
I mean, it's not atrocious.
Do we think there's any other darkness rulers that are
we can
worth mentioning in place of Lucifer? Or is he just sort of top of the pack in your opinion right now?
It's hard for me to think of another main board darkness ruler.
I could make an argument for Freyla, but that's the only one. I would probably ignore Scarlet.
If we're going into like, okay, we're ignoring Scarlet, but we're saying Freyla.
I would put Freyla over Scarlet in my tiny brain. Yes.
Sure. So here's what I have so far. So we've got Shayla, Gil, Shayla, Gil, Brunhilde, Hanzo, Kirik, Tigris, Lucifer, IU, Arthur, Time Spinning Witch, and Freyla. We feel like we're missing anything off first glance?
Okay, so I'm sorry I'm getting so like pedantic here.
Sure.
But like if we're talking about Freyla, then I feel like we can put a lot of stuff on there.
Really?
And am I crazy? Like, is there a Freyla deck I don't know about? Because it's just worse Kirik, right? Is it not just worse Kirik?
I think it's like worse Lucifer. Like actually, I think it's a Jeanne d'Arc deck that.
Okay, so still just like worse Lucifer,
but
we're not talking about like a real deck though.
I don't think it's
what does it beat?
Worse. I think it's sometimes
Can you
worse.
tell me like what it beats?
Exactly? I think it beats Gil. Yeah.
Sure. I can
think
believe
that's
that,
like worth talking about. And I think it even beats what's the other deck? Brunhilde, because it doesn't run out of cards. So like the Lucifer Jeanne d'Arc decks, like they get Blade of Faith and they get, Spirit and Life Gain, but like Freyla just like keeps getting things back, and that's kind of annoying. And they have a few more extra tricks.
Brunhilde keeps getting things back better.
So the problem with that keeps getting things back mirror is that one does so while gaining life and one does so while paying life.
So I don't actually care too much about the life pay on Freyla.
This isn't something I have like completely fleshed out. Like I'll tell you the percent.
No, I get that. I'm not trying to like put you in a spot.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that like I really struggle to see what this. I agree 100% that most Jeanne decks are going to beat Gil. I just think that if you're just going to play a deck that's Gil hunting, you're just going to play Lucifer, Jeanne d'Arc, and you're going to also randomly take a few other good matchups. Whereas this Freyla deck probably doesn't beat basically anything else.
So with that point, we would consider that Freyla would potentially let's just start the conversation there. Freyla would be potentially just kind of a worse in terms of not having quite as much utility to it. Lucifer kind of Jeanne d'Arc kind of beat downish kind of deck, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if we were to put it, so it would be kind of like you'd kind of be sneaking in there, so we can kind of put it on like the low end of the totem pole.
It's trying to be a hybrid of the things that Lucifer is good at and the thing that Kirik is good at.
Sure.
And so you're going to you're basically trying to change your matchup slate. And this is not necessarily saying that it's better than Lucifer, because I don't think it is in this case, but it's basically trying to say, okay, Lucifer has has a subset of matches where it's just really good and a subset of matches where it's really bad. And this is trying to say, what if I sacrifice a little bit in those really good matchups to shore up the others to get a little bit closer to being like a plays against the field deck that I just don't think gets enough to actually pull that off.
Right.
I think there's maybe some worlds where it like also snipes Hanzo in a way that Lucifer doesn't, where Lucifer's like entire ruler side is basically countered by Hanzo being Hanzo. And then like I think that Freyla, like there are some Dark Elves in Freyla's repertoire that are just like super good. Like the fact that you get to play 8 Majin Dark Elf makes you a bit more aggressive. The fact that your ruler just randomly deals 2,000 damage makes you like a bit more bursty. The fact that you have a 1-mana elf that you literally can't run out of that has Death Touch.
How do you play 8 Majin Dark Elf? Are you thinking Gravekeeper?
You have 4 Majin Dark Elf, and then you have 4 Gravekeeper, and you play Gravekeeper turn 1, you get a Dark Elf in your hand.
Yeah, sure, but that doesn't guarantee that you're going to cast it on 2, right? So it
doesn't guarantee it, but like you get to see more copies, and then like you always have like 1-mana 6/6 cards. I think that it's like the very bottom of my tier list, but like I think
I agree. I hear what you're saying here. I'm just saying that. But like if we're putting Freyla on this list, we can put Imul on this list, right? Because like Imul has at least as many good matchups as Freyla has, right? It beats Kirik. I mean that's one whole good matchup.
Any deck with white stones beats Kirik, though. I know.
There you go. So any deck with black stones probably beats Gil if you're playing a John deck.
One of the big differences between those two lists is just arguably just Freyla actually has a dual stone, so she gets like she doesn't sacrifice her stone base to get some of this extra stuff. Imul can't get access to Ray and some of the best invert cards without sacrificing stone base. That would be, for me, that would be the big difference between discussing those two. Is one like is trying to do this stuff and is a little lower, but is not like also doing so by sacrificing the stone consistency a lot of decks are just relying on right now.
Yeah, I would agree.
I
with
would
that.
love to talk about this more, but I do think this is like the bottom of the totem pole. So
I'm going to go back up to the top.
We're really hashing out the bottom.
Let's make our tier list. We can ignore Freyla for now.
I'm going to go to the top of our ruler list, and we're just going to work our way down. So the top of our list that we came up with was, of course, to start with Shayla. So let's talk about Shayla. Shayla, at first glance, the reason why this deck is doing a lot is because it has some of the cheapest, most impactful in the sense of what it can put back removable. It never runs out of cards because of the goodness of Shayla's Foresight, and in a meta that doesn't have as much Lorite, it has a pretty interesting God art, plus it has a pretty solid Kirik matchup, and the fact that Lightning Cave sits on the board, Kirik can never enter it, and then Kirik can never push damage. And it also has like the most combat tricks in the sense of like, again, it has a lot of really cheap and easy ways to go put that back in your hand when you're going to try to block it and you're going to take damage. So this is kind of what we've been seeing. It's been a lot of the pretty traditional list that we've been seeing has been kind of similar to what we played, but it ditched Giga Thunderfish and just plays the Mega Thunderfish and then Thunderbird, which has the 8/8 flyer with swiftness and barrier. And it's just trying to like swing and damage as fast as possible and then rely on that kind of cheap removal to make sure that it's going to just clock you and you're not going to be able to get back into it. So with that kind of quick synopsis of what Shayla has in mind and what the current matchup and meta is, where do we see that list? Where does it fall? Where does it kind of make its impact?
I would like to add one other note just because like you mentioned it as quick removal, and we're all, like, and at least here we're all aware that like this quick removal is all like return to hand like if you get to awaken a bunch of modes with putting stuff on the top of the deck, which is not normally removal. But we're in a very special case where there's a ton of things that are being played for less than their value or need to stick around a certain amount of time to get their value, like Ray or like PLLE. And we also have a deck like Brunhilde where the graveyard is 90% the same as being in the hand. And so we have this odd case where blues removal goes from being like, oh, this is a time-saving initiative to this is basically the same as a one mana put it in the graveyard card.
In the sense that even like if you're considering against white, right? If the graveyard is empty because you've been bouncing everything, their heirs are literally vanilla 6/7s for 3.
You mean that their heirs are full of hot air?
Exactly. So like that's a weirdly unique bonus that blue has in the white matchup. So let's talk about where do we see Shayla falling into this meta. I definitely think that we can probably solidly call her a mid-tier deck, but does she have enough going for her in what this current meta is shaping up to be to push into the lower ends of high tier?
This is interesting because we haven't really defined tiers yet, and I think like, are we saying like high tier, mid tier, low tier?
I think in the format that we have with what's currently available, how many decks, I think that it's a better definition to say high, mid, low, because we're sitting on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 rulers. So like when you have 6 tier 1 rulers, that's not really tier 1, that's high tier in my opinion. So I'm saying let's go with a high, mid, low for right now.
I'm gonna put Shayla low tier. I'll fight with people about that if we need to.
Sure. What would be your argument to put her there?
The exact opposite of what I just said. I'm not prepared to fight with people about this, but like, so the way I approach this is what are Shayla's good matchups, right? So we have Kirik. Kirik's a good matchup. Sure. I imagine any kind of John deck is a good matchup, almost assuredly. I imagine any kind of like. But that's it. I can't think of another good matchup.
Because like the problem is
maybe Diversity Hanzo. Actually, it probably beats Diversity Hanzo, right?
Not out of board, but mostly.
Can I hear any other good matchup? Would anyone like to give me one?
So my general understanding of Shayla. There's a couple different builds running around. Like I know the Australia ones we've seen, but the ones that CCG played in Berlin was actually like hard control.
Right.
And
I'm thinking when you said Shayla, I thought Jean Paul's deck, which I actually did like when I saw it. It wasn't egregiously awful, but it also was very tuned for a meta that was very aware of diversity, Hanzo and Kirik being really good, and it was good against those two decks. Was my understanding. I haven't like played it extensively, and so if that's the case, then that's fine. But I don't really expect much diversity Hanzo in this next event. And also, Vegas was topped by 7 decks that beat Kirik and a Kirik. So I hesitate to say Kirik is not going to be that represented because it's America, but Kirik probably shouldn't be that represented, which makes me not actually think Shayla is that good.
So I really actually don't hate Shayla against normal Hanzo, even just like green Hanzo. I think that traditionally, like Shayla's not been a playable deck since she was printed because of the power of green. First we had Fair Spell, and she wants to do all this really powerful, like bounce your guy, draw 2 cards kind of stuff. Then she's like, oh, I've countered with Fair Spell, and it's like now you're trying to get ahead on tempo, and now all of a sudden you're behind on tempo, and you threw away your card draw. Once Lore came out, it kind of put the nail in the coffin, where now Shayla's like even trying to get like counters is difficult, trying to turn things Thunderstorm when you need to is difficult, trying to use your God's Art is difficult. Last Days of a Powerless Dragonoid is an everyone side deck for Kirik, and then oops, accidentally hoses Shayla too. But these are all green cards, and I think she actually does very, very well against decks that aren't green, with the maybe exception of Brunhilde. I'm just not sure, but I think she actually does pretty well against that deck, especially the more aggressive version instead of the Panda version. And then when you look at the green decks that exist in the format, you've got Gil, which I think she has a 0% against probably.
Absolutely zero.
And then you've got Hanzo, which, it has the good tools against Shayla, but it's also kind of moved around its win condition being Jizo statues. And then Jizo statue is exceptionally weak to all the bounces.
I do agree that Jizo statue is weak to Shayla. And so if that's like, but on the flip side of that, can Shayla beat Karura? Like what's the Shayla's out to Karura? It's got to be nothing, right?
Yeah, it's God's Art and then get
It's not God's Art because Lore, yeah.
Yeah, but the deck plays Keys is called too, right? So like that's also
our deck plays Fair Spell. Like you were just fighting over it. Like,
it does have like a board wipe of sorts. I don't like it's got like a 4 or 5 board wipe, and it's got Last Thunder. Some of them are like you do have outs to Karura, and I'm not saying that like they're good, but like
this does not feel very stable to me.
It feels closer. Like I don't know. It depends on how aggressive you're playing or how slow you're playing. Like I still think it's going to be the top of the low tier, bottom of mid tier.
I do agree that Shayla is very good against Jizo statue. That's a very real thought. I don't know.
I would also note that while you're mentioning Karura, I haven't seen a ton of Karuras. Like even the lists that is are pretty low on that card. Like I've seen a fair number of lists that are like 2 tops between main and side, and they may not be main.
So I will argue that because we are expecting more Gil coming forward, the Karura numbers are going to go up.
I would agree with that.
That's going to be an
I don't disagree.
Yeah, that's going to be something that's going to hurt Shayla, even though it's supposed to hurt Gil.
So now that we've kind of talked about it, I want to just quickly kind of project something based on kind of what Brandon was saying about what the matchups are, right? So anything dark is like Joan to Arc based is probably going to get beat by it.
Oh yeah, and it's going to feel good.
And anything Kirik is going to get hosed by it. The more aggressive, I can actually argue that I think the more aggressive Brunhilde list, the like March Hare style Brunhilde list, is probably going to also
March Hare.
The 1 mana 6/6. I don't
know. No, I know what March Hare is, but it's like the
March Hare style Brunhilde.
Wait,
I'm not sure I know what this Brunhilde is.
Or the one where they play the 6/6 that turns into a 9/9 with Drain.
The 6/6 that turns into a 9/9 with Drain.
Yeah. I don't know what rabbit is, but I know what you're talking about. Aggro Brunhilde. I just call that Aggro Brunhilde.
Sorry, it's the White Rabbit. Sure.
That deck,
it's probably great against that.
At least in my experience so far with Brunhilde versus Shayla, and maybe like Jean Paul's specific list is a little less like loose here. The problem that it ran into for me was basically that it's very good at stumbling them early, but this just forces you into a scenario where you're trying to stumble them early and then race under them with these 3-drops before they can reach the late game. But you're inherently trying to kill them on turn 3 when their late game is insane.
Right.
And so like that gets a little weaker against this aggro version because they've dumped a lot of the tools that let them rebuild so constantly.
Right.
So because of the fact that variants of Brunhilde, variants of Hanzo, pretty much anything Darkness, and Kirik are all things that Shayla can beat, in terms of having a super strong matchup against Kirik in black, and then based on the variant can get that 50-50, 60-40-ish potential matchup based on choices and card decisions. I would actually argue that Shayla sits pretty decently in the middle tier category, because you would walk into an event and you would be able to say, you know what, I have at least 3, maybe 4 matchups that if I get paired up against, I'm not terrified by, I actually feel pretty comfortable with. And in my opinion, that would put it in...
I do agree with you, and that was like my initial mindset when I wanted to argue with Brandon, but when I think about the decks that it has the bad matchups against,
sure.
It's Gil, it's Hanzo, it's the
Right.
2 most popular best decks of the format, and I can't honestly put you in that high tier when you're just sacking the most popular deck matchups.
Oh, I wouldn't put them in high tier. Absolutely, I wouldn't.
I think
yeah, but I would have to put it in low
into
tier.
the ground at this point. Do we want to keep moving just because we
We
still
are-
have
we are
another 7
talking.
things in our list?
This is the best ruler scroll ever is when we're talking about
Oh, yeah.
nuanced little things in way too much
Okay.
detail.
So let's talk about our next one, Gil. Okay, top tier. Okay, moving
High
on.
tier, yeah.
Let's talk about Brunhilde. Specifically, there's a couple variants of Brunhilde. We'll talk about the kind of beat down, rush down one, or the traditional Panda Air combo one. So let's talk about Panda Air.
Panda Air, I still think is the best deck in format. There's gonna be more Panda players at this next event, and it's a bad matchup. So I'm not probably comfortable playing the Air Pandas list, although it is still extremely powerful.
Okay, so if we're walking into this meta saying the aggro Brunhilde versus the Panda Air Brunhilde, which would we currently put in this expected meta to come out as a higher, probable, more likely to win kind of percentage?
Air Panda is better than
Aggro Panda. I haven't played enough with Aggro Panda, but in my hypothetical brain,
Or aggro Brunhilde?
the only decks I have in high tier are Hanzo and Gil, and everything else gets put in mid tier or lower. And I think that Aggro Brunhilde has a better matchup against Gil specifically.
Can we be very clear? What is your Hanzo deck that you think is good? Which one?
Just the normal green quick cast.
You don't think Diversity Hanzo is real?
I think it is real. I think it's just not as good as Green Hanzo. I think it's mid tier as well.
I'm honestly not familiar enough.
It's so the green blue Hanzo is just like sometimes you just like play a Vivian on turn 1 and you yokai on turn 2, and then like you play a Lancet on turn 3, and then you diverse on turn 4 and they're dead. And sometimes you get like cool Mosasaurus plays, and then sometimes you open Lorite, Fair Spell, Viola, and you hit double Bluestone, and sometimes you open like blue cards, you open green stones. And you
I do have one thing that I want to talk about in terms of Brunhilde, which is the concept of, I've heard a couple people online call it Brunzo, which is green white Brunhilde. It's the idea of instead of playing Air's Einherjar summon, you replace that with Yokai Festival, and you to help kind of speed up consistency wise there, and you play some of the other kind of protection pieces that Hanzo's playing, while also backing it up with the like Brunhilde like life gain, flickering, keeping things protected package. That's actually the list that ended up. Those are the lists that ended up winning Singapore.
This is very important. I have a much better name for them than that, and that's Brunherazad.
No.
Brunherazad?
I disagree. I veto this.
Considerably better.
Admit, I haven't been able to test this deck in this format specifically. A deck like that was actually something I was messing with in the Time Spinning Witch format, and like the things I will say is the mana can be like the mana is actually much more consistent than like a two color deck will lead you to believe.
Yeah,
right.
And like the deck did a lot of powerful things. I'd be curious to see what the most recent list looked like, because I did some small updates, took it to locals once, but then like white was doing something so inherently powerful that I moved away from it for a while. But like I like it as an idea, but I don't have like concrete like results to give to it.
So maybe we can't quite tier it, but it's something to watch for.
I can talk about it a little bit because I
I'm
didn't test it.
comfortable putting it in high mid tier or even high tier. I think it's very good. I think it's very good.
I will at the very least say it beats a lot of the things we actually put on this list. It's just not talked about a lot, and I don't necessarily likely to see it because we are in a format where people don't want to like. You've heard 2 of the people on this podcast say that like under no circumstances are you likely to catch them sleeving up 2 different colors of stones that go into a GP.
That's
and
fair.
You need to be the person who wants to take that type of risk. If you are, this deck is trying to do with 2 colors, like basically the two of the decks that we've called the best in the format at the same time. That's inherently powerful if you think you can make it work. And if you can, tell me your name and get on stream so that I can cheer for you, because I love this deck. but
I'll be looking for one.
I don't
in
predict
Charlotte.
that it will be a huge presence that people need to necessarily be on the lookout for.
Sure.
And
I doubt it.
I think that Green White Brunhilde has all of these strengths of Mono White Brunhilde, and then gets even more value by adding powerful cards like Lorite and Fair Spell. So you get to take your Messenger of the Sun engine and then draw into cards that are better than cards that you play in White Brunhilde. The problem is that you inherit all of the weaknesses of Hanzo and the fact that your early game is just Jizo statues, and then every deck right now is like either Blue Leaf or Black Tears trying to spike Hanzo to like negate that. And one of the most powerful things that deck does in order to turn on the spear of the Valkyrie that it plays is to have big Jizo statues. Like the Mono White Brunhilde has like the Shang Shang, which makes Spear a good card on turn 4. If you don't have Shang Shang, if you don't have Jizo statues because they're getting bounced by Blue Leaf or Black Tears, then your Spears don't turn on until you have Mistletoe, and then that's like the second most hated card. Like when I'm hating for Brunhilde, I'm hating on the Mistletoe. I'm trying to like, if I'm a green deck, I'm trying to play Winds of Salvation or like make sure that card never resolves. Or if I'm black, I'm trying to awaken my Look of Corruption to discard it. So I think that you have the potential to get your cards stranded a bit more, and just like the more powerful things that you are doing by being green-white instead of mono-white are now the most targeted things in the format. And I still think it's a very powerful deck. That's just something like to be aware of, and kind of what I've noticed about the deck that makes me not really want to actually put it at like the top of the tier list.
Sure. Let us move on at this point to Hanzo. Specifically, there are two,
like 4,
three,
5,
3 variants of Hanzo
7.
going around. So there's
12.
Diversity Hanzo, which is Misty
Yep.
Moza Jizo machines, as I'm calling it.
For the record, for anyone who's not super familiar with cards, because diversity is where we've thrown around for a different card before, they're referring to Diverse Evolution.
Diverse Evolution.
Does use
Yeah.
scaling increases a number of +1/+1 counters for each creature type you control.
So you're trying
Well,
to
I
turn
love
on
that.
Jizo statues faster.
Because the word actually works for both cards that it refers to, because both of them care about having a lot of creature types. So we can use diverse just as like a word to describe decks that want to play a lot of creature types. I think that's really
if
cool.
it was a recurring archetype.
And it's great because diversity, we're including all races on this podcast, and it's literally
That's
like
right.
the races of like, it's not even like
Ruler
cheek.
School does not
Right.
School does not discriminate based on the race of its students.
Yeah.
In fact, we get better the more races we have on board. So
4 white males talk about racism.
I was
Yeah,
really
Misty-
gonna try and not
so-
do
Did you just assume my
Hey,
gender?
you
Oh my
white.
god.
Focus, boys.
Focus.
Misty Moza Jizo machines is the list that kind of made waves in
Yep.
Berlin.
I love this deck.
In terms of so obviously it's trying to use Diverse Evolution and things like Vivian and stuff to kind of turn on Jizo statues faster, in terms of just like, well, if you're gonna wait, well, you usually can't handle them once they're large, so here we go, let's push. And then it also backs it up with like a Misty Dragon, which is a card that in this format there are a grand total of, I believe, 4 cards that can answer that card, like permanently. And this deck can answer every single one of those, so Misty can just like continue to beat your opponent's face in. It plays Dinosaur. Does it play Dinosaur Surfacing or just the?
Oh
Motions?
yeah,
It
yeah.
plays
Yes.
Dinosaur Surfacing to be able to bring.
It plays Massive Growth in the Rune deck, so you can play Moza for 3.
So yeah, so you can get Mosasaurus and lock some stone down and kind of have to control that way. You're playing Karuras usually in the sideboard, and then you're also playing the Jizo package as well as Lancelot and stuff like that. So that's kind of, so it's very different than other ideas of what Hanzo has been. The only real similarity it has is that it plays Jizo statues. So that's version 1. Version 2 is kind of the quick cast Hanzo that we've kind of already seen with like the Jizo statues again, but then also using, like flashing in violas and all those kinds of pieces in traditional green fashion. And then the third variant would be like a hard control Hanzo. I don't necessarily know if
Machines.
machine
Machines,
Hanzo, just
I
pure
believe,
Hanzo machines. Okay, I haven't really seen that Hanzo
Do we
machines
want to save
making much of
Hanzo
a wave,
machines
so-
for when we reach Arthur on the list, because they're functionally
Sure.
very similar decks?
Yeah, so we'll go back. We'll
There was a
cut down to
green
that.
black Hanzo in Singapore as well, if we want to talk about that.
I haven't really looked at that one, unfortunately.
I'm not very familiar with it either.
I wouldn't talk about it too much,
How many-
but
If we were going
How
to
many
put a
black zones
Hanzo
were
as
in?
being... So which Hanzo would we think is, like, going into this event probably the highest one? The one that we would place highest up on the tier
quick
list?
cast, honestly.
So I want to
Just
make
like-
an argument here.
Sure.
Is there a matchup that Hanzo is better than Gil in the quick cast Hanzo? What do you think it is?
Jean Lucifer?
You think that Hanzo is better than Gil against John Lucifer?
I think so.
But it's losing for both of them, right?
So it depends. Like the it depends on how much discard the Lucifer deck is playing, and then at the same time it doesn't. There's like, it actually feels like a very 50-50 matchup for Hanzo and the aggro Lucifer, because like the aggro Lucifer, like, yeah, it has discard, but doesn't have card generation, so it's actually just like looking at your hand, then taking out your highest quality cards and then leaving you with your lowest quality cards. But then because Hanzo has McKay to like get card selection and then pick its top cards, and then it has Table Flip, which is a 1-mana answer to like all of the 2-mana cards, like Contract Demon and Jeanne d'Arc. As long as you keep the board clear, it has a 6 damage, like wipe your board. It has Sealing Scroll, which is incredibly powerful. I played a lot of it this weekend. I do feel like Hanzo is still a little bit favored, where I would say that Gil is incredibly unfavored. And I think post board is where the Lucifer deck can get a little bit better. But then, like, if the Hanzo deck can also board, then it just gets weird. I think that Hanzo is like just the de facto best deck and should be the deck that is targeted and is targetable. But I think it is favored against Lucifer.
Sure.
Jeanne d'Arc specifically.
So would we put both Diversity and Quick Cast Hanzo in that like high tier category?
I'm going to come out and confess that I haven't really tested Diverse as much as I really wish I had. I trust a lot of the CCG players' opinions. They're not awful players, and they all seem to think that it's a very good deck, and that leads me to by proxy believe it's a very good deck, but I really don't feel super qualified to talk about it.
So once again, we don't necessarily quite feel comfortable enough to put it on a tier list, but it is definitely something to watch for.
I think this is also this is a deck that's doing a more vetted version of what we were discussing with the green-white build, where this is a deck that's trying to mash together by going into multicolors in this format where that has some risk, and mash together two powerful things to increase the overall power. But technically, this is what I'm trying to say. I've got the best of the things Machines is doing. I have the Jizo statues, which is just the thing that Hanzo's doing with other stuff to try and make that sync home. And then just coincidentally, I get to have like Whale, which was the best thing Time Spinning Witch was doing, arguably in the previous format.
Sure.
Like, I guess the best non-banned thing Witch was doing. And so it's trying to say, I mash all these things together, and by making them work, I'm just going to be inherently really powerful.
Right.
And it is a list that, like, those things, because Jizo statues are so reliable early, because Machines specifically are like, okay, I need some 3-drops and then a ton of 1-drops. This is going to be a deck where, like, it can consistently do that, because it's like, oh, I need to mulligan hard for Surfacing and Lancelot, and then other than that, my deck is just a ton of 1-drops. That's very consistent to mulligan, very, very easy to mulligan hard. And the Jizo statues are just free to happen.
I played against a deck in Berlin. I played with it because I just played in Cal's New Frontier thing. I played 4 rounds of it. The thing is that, like, I think the deck is probably, like, on its good days, like the most powerful deck in the format. The problem is just the stone base, because it does have blue 1-drops that it wants to play on turn 1, and then you have a 40% chance to just not do that. The massive growth plus Silencer Surfacing is one of the most powerful things you can do against non-green decks, but you need double blue to do that by turn 3. And like sometimes you just don't have that. Like it's just something that happens. The more green stones you hit, like the kind of worse it gets, but you're still playing 4 because you do need Yokai on 2, because that's one of those powerful things you can do. So it's like better when it goes second, but then if it goes second, it hits a green stone, it feels bad. It's just a little bit too inconsistent to really feel good. And then even when it does go off, it still isn't super good against green decks, because it's green. Like Hanzo specifically has 6 damage to your board, clear up your 1-drops. It has Elemental Blast, kill your Lancelot. It has Lorite, stop your Mosasaurus. It has Fire Spell, stop your Dragonlord's Breath. Does have a little bit more equity because it does have Ayu and Dragonlord's Breath to punish Hanzo for playing Jizo statues, which I think is really, really cool. But Ayu just dies to Elemental Blast with 6 damage board weight.
Can I ask one very, very specific question about this deck that I do not know the answer to?
Yes.
What is the Kirik matchup? Is it good?
No, it's pretty a bit.
Okay, this deck's awful then.
So it's really good if you have blue stones.
Against Kirik?
Yeah, if you hit blue stones, then like you can play against Kirik, because you stick a Vivian and then like you play like more Machines on it, and then you play a Lancelot.
Okay, but like I think like mono blue Arthur is not favored against Kirik.
So
like,
this has
entirely dependent on hitting a Dragonlord's Breath or a Skyfall early enough to keep you in the game till the things Ryan listed can get you there. And if you can do that, it works. But those are only 8 cards in the deck, and it doesn't have a way to get deeper.
This deck can just kill you on turn 4 if it like gets to play. Like if it goes like turn 1 Bluestone Vivian, turn 2 Bluestone like Vivian number 2 plus Guinevere, turn 3 doesn't even matter anymore. Massive growth, so you can't play any more cards. I'll use my Vivian tap on your guy, and then like turn 4, the Verse Evolution kill you.
So I think that the Kirik matchup's bad. Like I'm hearing all this stuff, and I'm like my brain's just hearing ways that Kirik answers it. Like I'm not seeing this matchup be great. And if it doesn't beat Kirik, it probably isn't beating the regular Hanzo decks. It's not good against Gil, right? You said it's just not good against green decks. That like what? Did the CCG players just suck? Like what's the
so it's actually pretty good against Gil, and not because of like the effects that it has, but it just goes wide and big, and that is like the best thing you can do against Gil. Like Mosasaurus threatens Gil, and because you're playing 1-drops and because you're playing Jizo statues, and you're just like the more time that you have, the more you get to play your Moses for 5 mana, the more you get to play your Misty Dragon Spirits, the more you get to stack up your board and play Lancelots and then Diverse Evolution. And like Gil only has like 4 actual counter spells and the vanishes. It doesn't like the Fair spell doesn't really affect you that much because the only quick cast card you're playing is going to be the Dragon Lord's Breath, which doesn't matter against Gil. So you're really just playing grimy dudes on curve if your stones work out. Right. And then you're hitting Gil for like 50 damage in a turn, and they have to sack their Gil and lose it. So it does have actually a pretty good matchup against Gil.
Okay, sorry. So, okay, if that's the case, then maybe this deck is okay. Again, I'm just woefully under. But
I would put it in like the high mid tier. I think the consistency issues are something that you need to be aware of and talk about because it's just actually a very big problem.
Can I just come out and confess that I refuse to put any deck that has a negative Kirik matchup in high tier? Is that crazy?
I put it in mid tier. In our list.
I think that statement as a blanket statement is crazy. I think that having like Kirik matchup as one of your criteria is very real and not doing so is a mistake. But I think that failing that criteria does not automatically fail you out of the high tier.
So speaking about Kirik, let's talk about Kirik.
I begrudgingly.
Ryan's about to say it's. Oh, is he begrudgingly saying something?
Begrudgingly. Could consider a world where I would accept other people's opinions of putting this deck in high tier. I will put it in the garbage tier. Shouldn't be on a tier list. Kirik's terrible deck, never play it. But if somebody else on this podcast wanted to say maybe Kirik's a high tier deck, I might not argue against you.
I can see Kirik being a high mid tier list, like higher up on the mid tier place.
100% the truth. If I was going to this event that's coming up that I don't remember, Charlotte or whatever, I'd very likely be playing Kirik. I currently believe it's the best deck in format. I am being very serious when I say that. I think that it is the best deck.
Interesting. That is very interesting.
Now, is this from like testing, or is this just the?
I think this does make it into high tier, but
this is from testing and also from the observation that nobody in America seems to recognize that Belt Kirik is the best Kirik, not close. And like we literally had people on our team that were not aware of this fact.
Belt Kirik?
And people
Yeah.
Tournament Kirik. Like it's not it's woefully underrepresented. And we had like people that were playing white decks in the top that were like I forget.
So how does Belt Kirik beat Brunhilde? Because they just go Messenger of the Sun, pop your bracelet.
Yeah, but
you just spend 2 mana for that. Like you just don't have the time.
Okay. That's
I actually think it's a 50-50. Kirik is about a 50-50 against Brunhilde, slightly better than a 50-50 against Pandas, although also not like horrifically great. Maybe it is 50-50. I'm not sure, to be honest. It's okay against Kirik. I mean, Gil. Like it's okay against Hanzo. Like it actually just does not have a horrible matchup. Its very worst matchups are like 40%. And that's my favorite thing about the Kirik deck is you can sit down against literally everything, and some of your nut draws will just be unbeatable. And I previously didn't believe this. I used to think that like Kirik decks could never lose to Brunhilde, and that's why I would have called it bad before. But I was shown the light. I was shown that Kirik decks actually can beat all of these white decks way easier than I thought that they could. And so I'm sitting here believing Kirik is a very good deck.
We're putting the common and I can agree to that for the reasons you're saying. So we're putting Kirik in that high tier list as like maybe a gatekeeper to high tier.
Don't you quote me on that. Don't you ever tell anyone I ever said that, because I refuse.
Okay, so moving on real quick, because we do have a lot of stuff to cover still.
Yeah, of course.
Tagress. Specifically, this is like the control panda list variant. Like black gem pandas.
Yeah.
Rogues Guild pandas. Joey's in the chat, so Rogues Guild.
Call it that. I like that.
Rogues Guild pandas.
I think Pandas is sincerely mid tier. I
can agree. I think they made a really solid meta call with choosing
100%.
that, and kudos to Rogues Guild for committing as a team to pilot 3 different decks and like seeing they made 3 different meta calls and they say we're gonna just try to see if we can get as much of this deck as possible, and it worked out. That deck absolutely cannot beat any variants of Lucifer ever. Like I've played against that late. They told me that themselves, they told me that themselves.
It also can't beat mono blue machines. Like
there are just that's what I'm saying in the sense. Yeah. That's what I'm saying is like that deck. Really that deck was a solid meta call, and I think that it walked into a meta that was the right call for, and that's what gave it the boost that it needed to be and win. But I would agree with Ryan, where because of those matchups existing, I don't think it actually sits in a high tier slot. I think it is in that mid tier space. It was just the right call. So, definitely something that if the meta was to happen to give way to it again, there was, that there you go, that you have what you need to make it there. But ultimately, you're kind of walking in recognizing that those matchups do exist, and I think any deck that just recognizes that there are just some matchups where it's like you have a 10% win chance. I don't think that's a deck it's a matchup that could foreseeably be there, and you have a 10% win rate against it. I don't think any deck that exists like there can ever comfortably sit in the high tier area. I think it acknowledges that it's a mid tier trying to make a correct meta call.
Yeah, I do think that there is something to be said about why Pandas is mid tier and not just low tier. I think that while it did get a lot farther than maybe it should have because it had its surprise factor, that does not mean that the deck is inherently cheesy. It is actually just a decently powerful deck that does powerful things. It just does have exploitable weaknesses, and the fact that Rogues Guild did take it to a format where they were like, I think that this is the hole that we're going to punch through to make it happen. I think that Lucifer was sincerely not playable because of we're in America, it's 50% tournament, there's going to be a lot of Kirik, and Kirik is going to keep Lucifer out of the format, and then all the other top players are playing the Brunhildes, and then there's a spattering of Hanzo. I think the Hanzo matchup can get a little bit dicey for Pandas, but I actually don't I don't really know.
They acknowledge that based on the early game aggression, even Cole admitted that if they stick a couple of Jizos, if they do turn 1 Jizo into turn 2 double Jizo and they don't get the answer they need immediately, that pressure can just push Pandas out.
So I do think that it is solidly mid tier, but
I think that this is the definition of mid tier, right? And that it has a lot of great matchups and a lot of bad matchups. And if you predict incorrectly that the good matchups are going to be there, take Pandas, you're going to top a GP. That's what happens, and that's awesome. And
yeah, exactly. And then Colin from TCG Scrubs makes a bajillion panda memes. Did you have a good
Colin from ARG? Thank you. He's ours. We sold him.
So let's talk about. Go ahead.
One last note. So we've been talking about it having its good matchups, bad matchups, and it being a meta-dependent call. As far as predicting for this weekend, I would not suggest taking this deck.
I would also agree to not take
I think that its best matchup is far and away Brunhilde, and then it does good against a lot of the other things that hunt Brunhilde. And this weekend is not going to be defined by Brunhilde. Vegas was half Brunhilde or close to.
Yeah, close
and
to.
And then another 15% was Hanzo. That's a great field for this deck. That will not be this weekend because Vegas was a great showing of everyone who's good against Brunhilde, who figured out how to hammer Brunhilde's weakness, being there and hunting it. And so you're not going to see a ton of Brunhildes, or at the very least, if you see any Brunhildes, there'll be something wildly different to try and cover those weaknesses. And so I don't think this is a good meta call for this weekend.
Yeah, someone. Go ahead.
Sorry. I do wonder if there's a Pandas deck that's a little bit closer to Brunhilde that plays Air Orphica, and I know they already did, but plays more of the mid-rangey style stuff, and then just plays the bodyguard to get darkness gems, and then randomly beat Brunhilde that way. So what I'm getting at here is if there's an evolved Panda list that then comes back on beating itself and then beats the Lucifer matchups a little bit easier. And I don't really know, maybe.
We've talked about it quite a few times at this point, but I would like to talk about the idea of Lucifer.
I do want to get into some big brain nonsense, right? Because it's crazy to me that Panda's worst matchup. Panda's worst matchup is apparently Lucifer, right? But Brunhilde kind of bodies Lucifer, and they're both white decks, right? So you've got 15 cards in your side deck, and you get your Divinity deck for free. You've got a white ruler, I don't know how important your side deck is in Pandas, or if you got 15 cards to spare for like some Blade Spears and Missile Times, but I think that might exist. I think it's probably more than 15 cards, but like this has been like rolling in my brain.
Transformative sideboarding.
I literally can't get a sideboard down.
A lot of the main deck, there's crossover because you can
there is
leave
crossover, yeah. But it is like
the miscalcs and shit.
It is Blade, Spear, and Missile Time, like the 3 cards that you play in Brunhilde that aren't in Pandas, and those are like 4 of, so it is like kind of hard to make a full transformative sideboard because you also need
like
ruler.
Oh, you also need like Messenger of the Sun, though. Right?
Yeah, so it's like I haven't gotten it below like 24 card sideboard, and I really can't figure it out. So, but if somebody can figure it out, then you've got the meta.
Ryan, you also need the predicted meta for that, where there's a ton of Brunhildes for you to main deck this Pandas, but then
main deck Brunhilde side to Pandas, right?
Everywhere.
Right. My prediction for Charlotte is like Gil's gonna go up, Hanzo's gonna like stay about the same / go up. I don't know how much Hanzo actually saw. I think Lucifer's gonna come up to like counter the Hanzos and the Gils, and then like Kirik is gonna be Kirik because it's America, but is also trying to like get 2 steps ahead and hit the Lucifer. Like that's like the 4 decks I'm kind of worried about. Brunhilde, I don't know where it's gonna be. Like Rhino, so I think Tigris is probably a bad call. But
let's talk about Lucifer.
Sure.
Let's talk about Lucifer. So the variant that gets the most attention, really, is the like, we've talked about it before, the like Joan d'Arc Lucifer kind of rushdown-ish style. I'm not entirely sold on that being like for this weekend the best version of Lucifer. I haven't really done enough
control testing. Lucifer.
I feel like more of a control can be out there. There is definitely some stuff in the format that I think, and I say this in the sense that if the format shifts to where Brunhilde is seeing less, Gil is seeing more, Kirik is seeing more. Like if the format is heavily is pushed further and further away from being rune deck dominated, then I think Lucifer actually benefits because of some of the craziness that is his rune deck from shifting into that control style. Whereas if the format is a lot of like, okay, Brunhilde is matching you card for card anyway, so you can't really go hard discard on that. You can't really, and then you also have to contend with Hanzo and stuff like that and things like of those nature. So with what we're kind of expecting, what you're talking about in terms of Gil's going to be on the rise, Kirik is going to be trying to come back in and stuff, I'm not entirely against the idea of like a harder control style of Lucifer. Now, obviously, Kirik is still going to be a weakness of that deck in general, but who knows? Maybe something there exists. I don't know. Thoughts?
So Kirik bodies you either way. Brunhilde bodies you either way. So if we're talking like both of those matchups don't really make too much of a difference, what does the control variant beat? I'm not really comfortable calling it an aggro deck because the version I like plays like Athenia and Ruined Earth and stuff like that.
That's
control,
more. That's more the style.
That's more mid range, right?
Yeah, more like a mid rangey.
That's John d'Arc, that's Contract Demon, that's Ray, and then it tops off with Astemia and Ruined Earth. That's the version I like the most. And its bad matchups are Kirik and Brunhilde, and that anyway is also beating the control version. So I'm not really sure what the control version gets over the mid range version.
I don't know. I haven't done any testing, so like that's my point. There is I haven't done anything on it. Maybe that is the best version of Lucifer. It feels like there's a lot of creative space with Lucifer based on what the meta might be, but I don't know if that's true. I know that Rogues Guild has been probably doing a lot of work on it, but so maybe they're bringing something. But when I was talking with them, I went out to dinner with them after in Vegas, and we were talking about how this meta will be interesting to see what happens, whether it takes a step forward or takes a step back around the circle in terms of like
aggro control,
which direction it goes in terms of what becomes the meta. Now that having seen Panda, kind of spike it, being reminded that Gil is a deck, like the community has been kind of reminded that Gil is still a deck. We've seen the other stuff happen. We've seen Brunhilde not be as successful as it was. It's like, which direction are we going to go? So. Well, I can comfortably put Lucifer in a middle tier.
I can agree with that. I do think that Ray is a super good card if you can turn it online, and sometimes it just gets there. Like sometimes they just don't have Blade, sometimes they just don't have Fluorite, sometimes they just don't have Dragonlord's Breath, whatever your out is to that card. When it turns online and you need to invest 2 resources into it to remove it, then not only is it 2 resources like card wise, but also tempo wise. and that lets the other stuff kind of stick. That can get very difficult, especially when you have the discard in the deck to look at your hand and say, okay, you can't answer my Ray because here are your Ray answers. I'm taking away that answer, and then I'm playing my Ray, and then like the deck just kind of turns online when that card gets to flip in most matchups, which I think is just kind of good and will give it like value against pretty much everything that isn't Kirik. And again, I do think like Kirik's a great equalizer here, where there just aren't enough good answers in black to 1-mana 9/9s, and especially not to 1-mana 9/9s that get pumped with a heroic bracelet, because then you don't even have Life Severing Blade. You have to use Black Rosario, and you only get one of those, and like you've already taken the damage. It just doesn't feel good anymore. So I do think Lucifer is going to sit in the mid tier. I think it has this really cool thing where it is spiking the green decks more than any other deck in the format, but it doesn't have the Rogue matchup. It doesn't have the Kirik matchup. Doesn't have the Brunhilde matchup. Doesn't have the Shayla matchup. Like where like the other decks that kind of pretend to beat Hanzo and Gil kind of do.
Right. So we have two other rulers that I just want to quickly touch on, just because I think it's very easy for us to kind of quickly make a decision on them, and that be Ayu and Time Spinning Witch. And if we're talking about Time Spinning Witch, Lachlan keeps mentioning heroic something Time Spinning Witch. I don't know exactly what that is, but
it's Fremont's deck. Yeah.
Oh, is it that? Is it just that version? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Heroic Total 1,000.
That's
I was thinking
high
the same
tier. That's the best deck in the format. I don't know why we're talking about it. We can move on. What's the next
High
one?
tier.
High tier.
And
easy.
then Ayu.
Ayu.
Low tier.
That's what I put her in.
I played Ayu recently. I didn't like it, and
Low tier.
I sometimes killed white decks from 90 life, and I sometimes lost to black decks that main deck Sword of Lament, and I didn't think I could beat white decks, and I didn't think I could lose to black decks. So
there you go.
I'm still gonna put it in low tier, but that deck, I don't get that deck, man.
The two decks that you've listed as your best decks are, man, I sure can run 4 Scarlet's Agony and already have a ton of lore.
Oh, yeah, no, it doesn't. It reminds me of Shayla, right? Where it just doesn't beat green decks and it does good against everything else. But if I actually wanted to play a deck that did that, I feel like I would be more comfortable playing Shayla, because I think Shayla actually has a better chance
at it. Crazy statement.
All right,
I used to think AU was the ultimate Kirik killer. I actually think Kirik's about a 50-50 against AU now. And so that tells you where I'm at with the AU decks. I don't think they're very good at all.
We have one more ruler to talk about, and that is Arthur. Specifically mystery box so there's mystery box Arthur machines.
That's it. That's
the only version. And then we also wanted to talk about Hanzo machines.
Yeah, mystery
so let's
box
talk
Hanzo
Arthur
machines.
So
I actually ended up thinking I should have played machines for Vegas, because I didn't play against a single deck that didn't lose to machines. So the deck's good.
So we put it middle tier?
Middle tier. I think it's middle tier. I think it's better than Lucifer if we're talking about that deck. So
is it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then does Hanzo
Lucifer
machines go?
Beats Hanzo, but machines doesn't in my mind.
I think machines can beat Hanzo, and I think it can beat Kirik, and I think it can beat Brunhilde, which are things that I wouldn't say about the Lucifer deck. So and those decks are both pretty popular. Oh, I also think machines dumpsters Gil, and so if we're in that world, then I think that
that's an absolute dumpster. Yeah.
I have no idea about that matchup, honestly.
It's insanely good.
Yeah,
it is
very favored for machines.
So in my mind,
you listed about diversity. This is going wide, bigger, more consistently.
Okay, but
even can just suddenly be wide again. Like, even
better
if you
than
clear
that,
it, they just go,
Gil,
whoops.
Exactly. So Gil's biggest problem is it has really weak removal. Like, it has to answer things early and then answers other things with, like, the hero arrives and stuff. Gil will just never beat boxes. Like, you play an Unawakened box, you win the game. You play your second Awakened box against Gil, it's over. It's done. They have nothing.
Can you win the salvation that, or is it unchaseable?
Unchaseable.
Beautiful. All right.
So, with that out of the way, I'm going to quickly go through a list, and people in the chat can feel free to disagree with us and make arguments, and that's fine. But we want to get into building this Lich List.
I'm going to disagree with us, even though I'm on the podcast.
So, this is what we're talking about in terms of our predicted tiers. Now, this is not what we're saying is going to predict to win or anything like that. We're just saying, walking into this event, this is where we would feel comfortable with these rulers in terms of strength. At the top of the list, we have, in no particular order, Gil, Quick Cast Hanzo, Kirik, Brunhilde, or
We put that in high tier?
Brunhilde.
That's not in high tier in my
Well,
mind.
that's
We
what
don't
you guys
that
put it in.
mid, but
Well,
higher mid.
I think it's mid.
I'll keep it high tier. I'll keep it high tier.
And heroic time spinning witch, heroic epic
In
time.
high
Of
tier?
course. We put heroic time switch in high tier as a meme and he wrote it down.
Yeah,
No.
that's not real.
So
I
low
think
tier.
I will play heroic time switching witch at Charlotte, and I will win the event because
You
I'm
asked for a
undefeatable.
meme. I've got it built.
All right. Yep. Hold on. I'm gonna text you a list, Jeremy. Don't worry.
Okay,
All right.
sounds good. In middle tier, we have, again, in no particular order, Mystery Box Machines, Lucifer, Tigris, Misty Moza Jizo Hanzo, Shayla, Air Panda Brunhilde. And then in the low tier, again, in no particular order, we
Everything
said
else.
Ayu, Time Spinning Witch,
Mhm.
and Freyla.
Sure.
Yeah,
And-
I think there's some merit for us to like split up the mid tier because I think there's some decks that are strictly better than the other decks in the mid tier. But
Right.
for argument's sake,
Yeah, but we didn't have time for that.
We're not doing a tier 1, 2, 3, 4. We're just
Sure.
doing high, middle, low. So, quick recap. I mean, obviously you're going to Charlotte this weekend, Ryan, so you don't have to
I am.
answer. But Frank, if you were going to play a deck this weekend, what would you play?
I'm a bad call because I would actually play that green white Brunhilde.
Okay.
Mm.
Brandon,
Eric.
Kirik. I don't play cards anymore, so I don't know what I would play. I'd probably
would-
play machines, honestly. I actually really enjoy playing
That players
machines.
don't have. I would play the shit out of that green white Brunhilde.
I'd play Mystery Box Machines. I actually really enjoyed that deck.
if I wanted to earn a paid invite this weekend, I would play Guild. And I would make
There you go.
sure that I had tech to not lose to Jean d'Arc more than anything. But I
There
think
you go.
Guild's probably the best deck.
So with that out of the way, gentlemen, the time has come. We need to build a Lich List.
Do you want me to just send it to you, or
No, we're going to build a Lich List. So
What does
I haven't
Lich
pulled up.
do that we care about?
Remember, we're not necessarily trying to build a
I know.
competitive Lich. We're just trying to build a Lich List.
Okay, well,
I don't
can
know how to build anything that isn't competitive, Jeremy. There's
So then
these
go
words
for
that
it.
you're
Let's talk
saying
about
mean
it.
nothing to me.
Let's talk about it. So let's start with so I have the ruler. What's our stone base?
The 20 water stones.
What?
We're doing full memes, right?
No.
Okay, so hold on. What does Lich do? Can we pull up just Lich as a card and just talk
Yeah,
about
Lich is a card.
It's got Bane. Can we do
And then
anything
whenever
with
a
that?
whenever a non-token darkness resonator you control is put into a graveyard from the field, you put a 1/1 darkness skeleton resonator in the field.
Oh, okay, hold on. We can play that bloody war axe, right? That when it attacks, it does 200 to every resonator, and then it's got Bane, so it like
that
wipes the board.
Wanderer card. Isn't it only to resonators? That it's an addition resonator. You
Yeah,
failed.
it's an addition
boy.
resonator.
Oh no,
Unlucky.
disaster.
So do we want to abuse the fact that it has Bane and then actually play like blue-black and play optional possessions? We can give it target attack, and then that sounds bad. All right, let's just abuse the fact that we make tokens forever. What can we do with
All right.
tokens?
We can sack them to Vladimir.
Yep.
Is that the best thing we can do with tokens? Because that's not a very good thing.
You can also
Alright.
use them for Darkness Rachel. Sack them to
we
revive
can
stuff.
play. We can
I
play
like that. Okay,
play-
no.
Priest of the Forgotten Gods and make them like sacrifice all their resonators with tokens.
Wait, no, Rachel exiles guys. So if our guys die, we can exile the tokens with Rachel, I guess. That's
Yeah,
fine.
you exile the token to get the guys back.
First 4 cards, we're playing 4 Skeleton Horde every time, right?
Yes,
Okay, and because we're playing Skeleton Horde, we're playing 4 Life Severing Blade, right?
that's also true.
All right.
But no, hold on. If we're playing Skeleton Horde, then John just got a lot better too, so we could just play John.
Okay.
And if
don't
we're playing
have to.
John, then we can play Contract Demon. If we're playing Contract Demon and John, we can play
Right.
Faith in the Darkness. If we're playing Faith in the Darkness, then we can play Ray.
I mean, we could, but I don't think we need to play John just because we're playing Skeleton Horde and Life Severing Blade. I think that's where we can stop the train and just kind of dial it back a little bit. But yeah,
We're gonna play some
Skeleton
other
Horde-
stuff.
Question: Do you want to give yourself red to get some of the banish outlets that they printed in the last set? Like
I think okay. So
Like Ma'at.
So
yeah, like
hold on.
Ma'at and possibly like a low count of Zhuge Liang for like late game and fighting all the chants around.
For my late game, I'm interested in Dark Revolution and playing because I do want to use my tokens to play this Rachel card from the historic set. I think that we can play the camel. I don't remember the name of the
Carrier
camel.
camel.
Carrier camel. So that that would help us discard our top end out of our hand to revive with Rachel and Dark Revolution.
Sure.
Do we have a lifeguard for this deep end that we're diving into?
I'm trying to do fun things, all right?
Yeah,
if
fun,
we're playing,
fun things.
if we're playing big guys, right? If we're playing big guys, we can reasonably play.
If we're playing Reanimate Dude, Heroic Epic, and Carrier Camel, then we want to like reanimate Welser, right? Because that's
Exactly.
a reanimator target, and B, if we have Welser, then we can Dark Revolution 2 things. And if we need big dudes, let's play Anubis. No,
Anubis. Athenia. We don't have 5 redstones to ever cast Anubis, so I think Athenia is more responsible.
Right, you have four dual stones. You can easily be at like minimum like 6 of each stone without making choices.
No, Athenia is better. I agree.
Yeah.
Do we play Belial?
I'm inclined to say yes, but I don't know if the answer is 4.
I don't think the answer is 4, but I also agree yes. Also because Belial is a way to, if you have a bunch of tokens and like you've dealt some damage, you can convert Belial into a burn spell.
Jeremy, put the stones in the main deck, not the stone deck.
Well, shut up.
I just wanted to let you know, in case you weren't aware. Blazer Thieves.
Someone said, the Blazer gang member.
Oh yeah, it's a 2-mana 6/6 that both players discard a card.
But you don't draw.
Yeah.
I think that's why we like it. I think that's why we like it with Carrier, because you can sacrifice it.
I thought Athenia was a good idea.
I like Athenia. How many? I'm just putting. So just so you guys know, I'm putting 4 ofs in the deck, and then we can scale back from there.
Yeah.
What's the name of the 3-drop that enters and drains 5, and you can draw a card for a 10
Astima.
Astemia, definitely.
So that card's good, but like, does it fit here?
So it's just good, right? So it's just good black cards, right?
Right. But like, if we're playing just a good black cards deck, we put in Ray, then we put in Ray. We put in Contract Demon. We put in Jeanne d'Arc. We put in Vintage.
This is where I was at originally.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's. I don't necessarily know if I want to play Astima.
Okay. Serious suggestion. The best reason, the best and only reason to play Lich over Lucifer is the 3-drop Gil that transforms and kills the thing. So I think we should play a couple of those.
Grim, not Gil. Okay, I agree with that.
Grim of the Crimson Moon.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's a good
card. There's actually Mother Butters, and it's underappreciated.
So then if we're playing Grim, we want access to some mystery counters, so we probably want Stone of the Dark Castle.
That's 100% going in there. That's the best darkness stone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we can play either or both Glint of Insight and Sword of the New Moon, which are the best cards to abuse the mystery counters that we're playing.
I think Grim is the best card to abuse the mystery counters.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, but he'll get them himself. But also, like, I think like Glint Liquid Corruption is something worth playing. We could do like.
I think Glint definitely goes in here.
Yeah.
Can we get rid of this Carrier Camel? Can we like be real here?
Looking at what we've come up with, and like more, yes, we could even probably get rid of the Welsers now that I'm looking at it.
Can we also get rid of the Reanimate Rachel?
I like the Reanimate. Why are we Lich?
Right. Oh, that's the question, right? Are we playing Reanimate Rachel just so we have an excuse to be Lich?
Kinda.
Okay, all right, let's keep it.
That's kind of what we're doing.
All right.
So are we keeping Welser? Yes, no?
No, replace Welser with Belial.
Replacing Welser with Belial?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Since Rachel's are going to sit in our hand forever, and then we're never going to play our big stuff because we're going to die on turn 3 because we're playing against stupid blue decks and red decks that kill us. I'm set.
Okay, so like if we want to not die to those decks, we could play like Frankenstein.
We could play. No, I think it's Sword of the New Moon's good. We have Grim to reload mystery counters, and Grim can kind of pay for itself.
Looks like a worse Lucifer deck. Lachlan, you're a damn philosopher. You're the next Aristotle.
Holy shit.
We are like graced by your genius.
I'm actually impressed. That's a very good analysis, Lachlan. That's good. Why don't we play Lich's Master Chant so that we can be better than a bad Lucifer deck?
So I'm looking through darkness cards right now.
This is me trying to get Jeremy to use his company shield ties to tell us what the next Master Chants are from the next set.
I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be.
That sounds like exactly like something a company shield would say.
Okay, so let me be very very clear with you, Ryan.
I understand. Okay.
When Jeff left the company, my NDA was related to Jeff. So like if I wanted to tell you something, I have zero contractual obligation to not. So I don't know anything at all.
Damn it. All right, so we've got.
Okay, all right, guys. Here's an idea. Let's ditch everything we've done so far and make Vampire Tribal with Alucard.
I'm gonna throw.
I have an idea.
From the chat. I have an idea. What about no? And here I thought Lachlan was the smartest person in this podcast. It was Brima the whole time.
I think we need to find some other ways to either somehow make use of or kind of generate tokens. How do you guys feel about just playing maybe even a couple of the 3-drop garden?
I don't know what card you're talking about, which makes me assume it's like...
You aren't even close to enabling that. So, Jeremy, you just listed the desire to make more tokens.
Sure.
This is a card that inherently requires you to kill things to fill it up.
Right.
What about...
Your way to make more tokens is to kill things. Like,
what about Guinevere?
Another payoff when what you need is another enabler.
Sure.
There's a red 1-drop that banishes guys, and there's therefore Guinevere. What card is that?
We're not playing Wanderer. We're not
No,
playing...
no, there's a red 1-drop that banishes guys.
Ma'at.
Yeah. Guinevere. That's what I said. Come on.
Yeah, there you go.
Read my mind, Jeremy. Love me.
I'm trying to remember what her name... I have it right
here.
Oh, we had an interesting suggestion in the chat. Kame. And tokens and Kame gets to do a billion damage.
Ooh.
Ooh, woo.
Ooh, I like Kame.
I do enjoy a good Kame deck. It also makes your tokens actually do things. Which is nice.
Yeah.
And if we're going to plan on doing some resurrection stuff, we can always bring Kame back.
Kame is pretty spicy.
Okay, now hold on. If we're now playing Kame and now we're playing tokens and we already have the Nullstone, we could play the Majin Dark Elf. We played John, and if we're playing John, then we can play things. And if we're playing
like the cycle. This is like my meta video. It was like, hey, we gotta beat Gil. And if we gotta beat Gil, we gotta play Jean d'Arc. If we want to beat Jean d'Arc, we gotta play Brunhilde. If we want to beat Brunhilde, we gotta play Hanzo. It's just like
I can't spell.
Every deck just builds themselves.
Okay, hold on. Okay, but this time it was actually a serious suggestion. If we're playing Kame and Majin Dark Elf and like a John package, that's decently unique, but it's actually a synergy with Lich because because you get a bunch of tokens and then Kame can do a billion damage and tokens kind of make John a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and then it's less that our ruler produces tokens and more that our ruler flips for 3 mana and is impossible to kill and will hit you every turn for 8 damage and you can't really block.
And kind of turns on Gil, or not the Gil, the Grim.
The idea of Jeremy sort of puts forth so far of avoiding that Joan just to avoid being a bad Lucifer deck is going to make yourself not even like you're going to make yourself a bad Lich deck as well.
Okay, no, hold on though. I'm not saying we're a bad Lucifer deck because we get to play a lot of stuff.
I'm saying that's the reason why Jeremy has avoided putting it in so far. Is just like he's worried about becoming just another Lucifer deck. But if you avoid every card that Lucifer would play,
right?
If we put in Kames, I think we are doing something creative here. So I think we cut the Belials.
Okay. Agreed. I was about to suggest cutting Belials too.
I think we cut all the Belials. I think we can leave in like
4 of those, Rachel. But I guess we'll get there later.
Yeah, we can cut some number of Rachel and even the Estima because suddenly our top end becomes Kame and now we're an aggressive deck, but we're actually a good aggressive deck.
Sure.
So we are putting Majin Dark Elf in, right?
I agree with that, yes. And then the question next is March of the Dead, Jean d'Arc, Ray, all that. Ooh, I'll be right back.
Yep, that was what I was going to say. March of the Dead.
Won't do something I wouldn't
do.
Watching you boys.
Yeah, and for that.
Oh, we can play Welser because it's good with March of the Dead. We play like one of it.
So one March of the Dead or one Welser is what you're saying?
One Welser for March of the Dead and then the John package.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think we don't need to play 4 Blade of Faith or Life Severing Blade if we're an
things will get cut. I'm just starting with 4 ofs.
Yep.
Sure.
So we have Welser here. Ray. And then are we playing Brain, turn on.
Big Brain plays.
Are we playing the Faith?
I don't know if we can fit Faith. Although I'd like to.
What are we thinking? So we don't need 4.
Oh, Contract Demon. You do want Contract Demon.
Because he helps you draw cards.
He is a card draw spell.
Yeah. So let's...
Okay, so here, at this point, we are currently at 54 cards. So let's cut 14 out.
We get room. So I would say you can skip Dark Revolution entirely.
We're probably beyond that now.
Yeah, like you don't have
Dark Revolution
and
the
whole
Rachel.
reason for it. So you've got 3 cards you can cut there.
Probably can cut the Rachels at this point too.
Yeah. like in that.
Yes, I would say at least they don't belong in your main deck.
Right. Well, we're not building a sideboard, so
How
go down to 3 Kame and maybe only 2 Ma'ats.
3
I'm fine with
Kame,
2 Ma'ats.
2 Ma'at is fine, probably.
Okay. Now we're 5 cards that we need to cut.
Let's go down to 3 Glint of Insight.
Okay.
Yep.
4 cards left.
Let's leave it at 44.
No, I think this sounds like we're going to cut one of our 2 drops since we're not a Faith in the Darkness deck. Or wait, do we still have 4 March of the Dead?
We do have 4 March of the Dead. Go down to 3, you think?
Yeah, I would say go down to 3 of that and then cut some of our.
You know that March of the Dead is broken?
I like Contract Demon. I like
See, I'm also on board for cutting down on 3 contract demons to get us down.
Okay.
I'm not
2
sure
cards
if-
left to go.
I'd like to like
cut the all
about not
months.
cutting. I'd like to consider more closely cutting March of the Dead because I think that card is actually broken. So
You
Can we
want to
cut the,
keep March of the Dead? Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to have 4 Life Severing played. I think that's not great for aggro deck.
I can say 3. I think that 1-man removal is good no matter what deck you're playing, though.
So we need to cut 1 more card, and then we have a 40-card list.
So 1 more contract demon, 2 of them.
We don't have any
There
Look
are
of Corruption.
There are 10th 2 drops. So we're not a Faith in the Darkness deck, and in addition to
But
our 2
contract
drops, we
demon's
also
good.
have like
Yeah,
10
no,
1 drops.
you can still play so many 2 drops. We can cut 1 Athenia.
Go down to just 1 Athenia.
Yeah,
Well,
I
no,
think
aren't
that's
we
fine.
at 40 now?
Yeah, I want to cut the Amats.
We can cut both of them if we need to. We're not reanimating anymore. So
Sure, yeah, we can cut both Athenia and both Amats, and I want to put Luck of Corruption in here because we are playing 3 Clint, and that just seems good.
Sure.
And then how many cards are we at?
We're at 40. That's exactly 40. I put them into the rulers.
So
Oh, no, there you go.
we accidentally backed into the Lucifer aggro deck.
Right, but
We tried
we're
so
doing
hard
some
to
things.
avoid-
But we're doing some things differently, and we've got a creative top end.
I think the Kame and the Lucifer, the Lich flip are a little bit more interesting than what Lucifer does. But
Yeah,
now
so
it's
let's talk about
Grim-
rune decks.
So for rune decks, we want to play the Power of Immortality.
Yeah, I was about to say.
The one that pumps +2/+4, but if you're red, +4/+6.
Hold on, I'm gonna put this. I'm just gonna put
I
it
like
in the
that
ruler.
card. Are we gonna
Sand.
play Jet Black and Sword of Lament?
Yeah, those were 2 one divinities I just named, so we could do that.
Yeah, and then are we playing Lich's Master Rune? I don't even know what it is.
So the whole
It's-
idea with Lich's Master Rune is it's just essentially a one-sided. It's like Final Battle. You're just final battling.
It's Final Battle, except you have to lose your own resonators.
No, you don't, because you
What-
pay.
what
You
is-
do it with the Spectre Rush.
But we're not playing Spectre
Oh,
Rush
Yeah,
right now.
definitely not.
I was gonna say, we
Spectre
didn't
Rush
have
2 or
Spectre
3
Rush, so-
Divinity?
It's
Three
they're both
too.
2. It's 4 Divinity to do both.
Isn't Spectre Rush 3?
Nope.
Unleash the Hounds.
It is. Okay, so instead of Sword of Lament, we just play Spectre Rush.
How much does Spectre Rush cost?
Wouldn't we
2
just do it
mana.
instead of Jet Black Wings?
No.
I
Because
like
Jet Black Wings is trying to board wipe, and if we're doing Spectre Rush plus Master Rune, we're
So we
trying to
have
board
2
wipe.
board wipes.
I
would
like
point out,
more board
You
wipes.
could make the same argument for Sword of Lament because you're trying to board wipe, but your ruler or you're trying to kill a
Yeah,
J
yeah.
ruler. But
But
your
your
J ruler
ruler is
inherently
Lich.
kills other J rulers.
Okay, so Spectre Rush.
And you're only going to kill a J ruler once, whereas you're going to kill boards a bunch of times.
Spectre Rush, and then Power. I forget what his Master Rune is even called.
It's Cycle of Death or something. Cycle of something.
Bicycle of Death.
Cycle of Death.
I'm saying if
And
you get to
then
Cycle
Sand
of
Awakening, right?
I believe so.
So that puts us
So,
at.
so not to sound too casual, but I actually don't hate this.
So we're at a grand total of.
I don't hate it either.
6, 8. We can play all 5 with this. We're at
Yep.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a perfect 10.
I like that.
So in terms of like,
I would
the
also point out
advantages
before
this has
we
over the-
also because some people it's been thrown a couple times that this is like kind of a bad lose for aggro. That it's not shown here because we've decided to not do it, but the sideboard this gets access to has vastly different options than Lucifer does.
What options are you referring to?
So like we cut a bunch of stuff that's basically just like late game, mid range stuff that does work in specific matchups that you could just have in your sideboard. Like you can have a couple Rachels in your sideboard. You can have the Athenias in your sideboard. Like you can have this stuff. I guess the Athenias aren't unique to or aren't out of Lucifer's wheelhouse, but you can have access to some of that stuff. You can have at your top end, like we didn't consider it and I didn't throw it out again because I do think it's a bad fit for the main deck, but I do think that in your sideboard, you would have 2 Juge Leon, the one where you just start sacrificing skeleton tokens to counter chance.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like those are things
Like
that,
in all seriousness,
that's straight. You have a cancel spell in black. That's not something Lucifer gets.
Yeah.
That's also true.
The Spectre Rush Master is actually pretty darn good for aggressive decks, like in the sense that you can build up these little idiots, clear out like Brunhilde blockers, and
Spectre
kill
Rush
them.
plus Kame is also devastating because you're
Spectre Rush plus Kame
That's
is
the
like
other thing I was
kill
going to
every
say
dude.
is that Kame, if it actually sticks, it's pretty ludicrous with like a lot of the stuff that's going on here. I actually ended up not hating this as much as I kind of anticipated I would. This is not horrific.
Well, good on
Yeah,
It might be
us.
something
it,
worth
actually.
thinking about, yeah.
Well, good on
I'm
us.
playing in North Carolina this weekend, boys.
Dope. I'll save it up for you, Ryan.
We're all flying out there playing this deck that we just built on live on stream.
With no sideboard. Let's go.
Dude,
Oh, don't you worry. I will get you a sideboard by North
Oh
Carolina.
my
So-
god.
There you
He's doing a
guys
lot of
have it.
things, actually.
We will put. I will be sure to build that list up, and we'll try to get it recorded
It
here on the
beats
channel
Gil.
soon. It probably does.
It's got to
Gil.
go. It's got a slaughter Gil, right?
And it doesn't. It's like it has Kane, which is like some aggressive like reach, which like Lucifer.
I would
aggro
also
does
like to
not
point
have.
out that randomly, not that you're going to ever get to 4 will, but you can just casually steal a Jizo statue if you wanted to.
I
It's
hate the
not
Jizo statue.
relevant.
But probably
really
not, though, right?
not irrelevant. It's super kind of important. Like yeah,
Like, you can just be like, oh, you have 6 counters on that Jizo statue, play Kame, steal it, hit you in the face, sack it, swing it at your
the
face. again.
problem is that Jizo turns on 6 on your opponent's turn, and they'll immediately turn it sideways, and then
Right.
Kane doesn't untap, right? Or does it?
Yes, it
The
does.
game
It
does.
does
It
untap.
doesn't.
Yep. Steals it,
gives it-
untaps it, gives it swiftness.
Hold on a second, boys.
Got it.
Like, because you have Look Corruption and Glint of Insight, like your opponent just doesn't have Lorate. Like they just don't.
Also,
Like-
if you flip, all right, here's the funniest thing. If you have a flipped Lich and you steal a Darkness Resonator, you can sack it to Kame and get the token.
Yep.
Wait, Lich only works on Darkness Resonators?
Yes.
No, it's not.
sadly.
It's a. He only.
It's
Sun-
Darkness Resonators.
What? Why? I didn't even know that. It sounds so bad.
I know, it's tragic.
What the? I don't even believe you.
Okay.
Oh my god, I believe you because I read it with my own 2 eyes. This is bullshit. Force Will. Oh my god. Oh my god. They did Lich worse than Chimimi. They were like, yo, Hanzo, here you go. Here's Jizo's statue. Here's Yokai Festival. Here's this broken ass rune that just is one of the best things you can do in Force Will. Only caveat, it loses to Black Tears. And Chimimi's looking at her only master rune and no master chant, like, why you gotta do it like that, bro? And then they did Lich even worse. I didn't even know.
So, there you guys have it. That is the list. It has been fun to build it with you guys and talk about this tier list. I know that myself and Ryan will be in Charlotte. I'll be streaming. Ryan will be playing some kind of meme that he'll send me a list at midnight on Thursday to build.
I'm trying to make it as memey as possible so I can lose as swiftly as possible and then stream with you. Wouldn't that be fun?
It'll be
It
nice.
sucks that I'm always a good player in like topping events and I can't like participate in commentary, but this will be the event.
This will be it.
This-
It'll be
This will
great.
be it.
Just play this Lich list, and there you go.
What happens if I top them?
Then we all get to be like, we built it on live. There we go. So that does it for this week. There will be no Teacher's Lounge next week because I come home from Charlotte on Monday. Tune in for our feature match tomorrow, which is a different take on Life Gain Brunhilde versus a very spicy Fushi list that I got sent by Will Lugar. I'm just gonna say, you know,
Oh my
we
God.
talked about Misty Dragon Spirit. What do you know about having 2 of those on turn 3? That's all I'm going to hint you at for this list. But thank you guys so much for watching. It has been a pleasure being with you. If you want to support what we do, go ahead and check out the links down below or consider pressing that join button right there to be a member of the channel. Get access to all kinds of cool perks and stuff like that. But until next time, this has been myself, Jeremy Franklin, and I have been joined by the wonderful Ryan Miles.
No, Misty Dragon Fuji.
Brandon Bremont.
Au revoir.
And Frank Klosser.
I'm off to dodge bread.
Class dismissed.